So to get started, welcome everyone to updating your resume or CV and really taking the first step to conclude your internship. My name is Jillian Lowe. I'm the Chief Academic Officer for Virtual Internships, and for the past 12 years, I've been teaching employability programs to students and young professionals across the globe, including teaching them how to enhance their resume or CV for post-program employability. So how can they get that really great shining resume CV? And so what I'm here to do today is to briefly discuss the steps you can take to enhancing your resume or CV post-internship. So to get started, I would love to hear from someone, anyone, if they're willing, to ask, what is a CV? So if you think you have a really good answer to what is a CV, I encourage you to raise your hand and I'll unmute you and we will hear your answer. There is no wrong answer, so anyone is welcome to talk, but anybody want to kind of risk it? Thank you, Ahmad. I am going to allow you to talk. If you could tell me, what is a CV?
To keep it simple, it's a summary of your skills and achievements.
Ahmad, I couldn't have said it better. That is perfect. Yes, it is a summary of your skills and achievements. Perfect. All right, and so I have another question for you all. What is the difference between a resume and a CV? Does anyone have that answer for me? You can raise your hand and I can allow you to talk. All right, Abdullah, quick on the hand raising. I'm going to allow you to talk. What is the difference between a resume and CV?
I think the resume is used basically when you apply for a non-academic organization, but the CV usually used in the academic sector.
Absolutely. You guys are 2 for 2 on beautiful, perfect answers. So a CV is short for curriculum vitae. And when you have a curriculum vitae, what you have is your full academia on there. And usually who is using this is a master's or a PhD candidate with lots of publishing. So a curriculum vitae can be probably 3, 4, 5, 7 pages long. But what's happened is a lot of the world, including the UK, Australia, New Zealand, has started using the word CV to really mean the exact same thing as resume. So in the United States and Canada, we say resume, and this is our summary of our skills and our achievements. And in the UK and Australia, we're going to use CV, and that is a summary of our skills and achievements. And if you are a PhD student, you're going to use a curriculum vitae, which is not so much a summary, but a very long list of your skills, achievements, and publishing. I say this now just because what this means is anytime I'm using the word resume, I'm really meaning CV in this instance. And when I mean CV, I'm meaning resume. They're interchangeable in the sense of a 1 to 2 page piece of paper that has your skills, achievements, and highlights that you will submit for a job. So to get started, really what we have is a problem. Because of the internet, to apply to a job is really easy. It's much, much, much easier than potentially 40 years ago when you would print out your resume, you would write a cover letter, you would put it in an envelope, and you would mail it off to the application. And they would potentially get anywhere from 20 to 40, and they would sift through it and find the right person. And even more so, when they found the right person, the likelihood of that person staying in the job and not job hopping, but staying in that role for their career was really high. Now, come 2020, we have the internet. So to apply to a job, I can do it with 1 click. I can actually apply to 100 jobs in 1 click, which means that the average job posting is getting 250 applicants. And there are more job postings because more people are jumping careers around 5 to 7 times throughout their career and changing jobs, changing companies, and more. And so with that problem comes a problem for you. How can you make your resume or CV stand out to get past the 249 other applicants? So what this means is that it's going to be really important to have a very strong CV. This is your weapon, your tool, the best thing you have to get your foot in the door to then have an interview and then get the job. So to start, what I'd like to ask is that you all use the chat function to answer this question. When concluding your internship, what is the most important first step? Do you think it is A, request and receive your program certificate, B, update your CV to reflect your internship and experience, or C, thank your current supervisor for the opportunity? So feel free in the chat to write A, B, or C. Really simply, what do you think is the most important? Beautiful. I'm loving these answers. So yes, when you look at the goals of completing an internship, what we want you to do is have increased professional development skills. We would like to enhance future employment outcomes. We would like to increase your professional network because we know a lot of jobs are hired not because of a job posting, but because of your network and who you know. And we want to unpack your career goals and your future career pathway to allow you to figure out what you would like to do, what you want in your job and what you want in your career. And so noting these goals of completing an internship, absolutely. We would like you to first and foremost thank your current supervisor. This will enhance your professional skills and it will make sure that you have solidified your professional network for that future job recommendation or more that you potentially might need. And two, you need to update that CV. And while you might be thinking, well, I'm in school, I don't actually need to apply to a job right now, or I already have a job. Updating your CV as soon as you finish will allow you to do everything when it's fresh and recent in your mind and make the ultimate addition of your job on your resume or CV that much better. While a program certificate in the academic world can be quite nice, no employer is going to ask you for a certificate, which means that the most important thing you can do upon concluding your internship and really showing that you did this is add it to your resume, add it to your LinkedIn, and highlight how you have this experience. So noting that, the first thing we'd like to do is just go over the basic fundamentals, the three big fundamentals of a dynamic CV. So first is length. Now, this is something that if we were all in a room together and I said, let's just have a debate about how long a resume should be, potentially some would argue very vehemently that it should be 2 pages, because how could you possibly get all that information into one? Americans might more argue that it should be 1 page maximum and that they will throw out anyone that is longer than 1 page. Well, I don't think that there is potentially a perfect answer to the correct length. There are some hard rules that everyone should follow. 1, if the job application notes a length requirement, adhere to it. Do not ignore it. Remember, a job applicant is now receiving 250 applications, and they would like to make it as easy as possible to sift and sort through the good and bad. So one of the quick things they do is put qualifiers. So if I put on my job application, I would like a resume that is max 1 page and in PDF format. What I'll do is I'll just delete any applicant that comes in with an resume longer than 2 pages or not in PDF format. They couldn't follow those simple directions. They might not be the candidate for me. So this is just a simple way to sift through candidates. So make sure you adhere to the job length. Finally, if you have gone over 1 page and now you have this awkward 1 1/4 of a page and you have 3/4 empty, utilize the blank space or reduce it to 1 page. You're most likely going to miss that information more and it's going to be a mess. And finally, since length is so precious and you might be trying to fit all your information into 1 page, don't waste it with really obvious things like references provided upon request. Well, of course they're provided upon request. If I would like them and I request them, you'll provide them. So we don't need to kind of note that. You can keep it blank because it's just assumed that if we need references, I will ask of them and you will provide them. When you're coming up with length though, the most important thing you can remember is 1, the average recruiter spends less than 10 seconds reviewing a resume or CV. We can all take time right now and count to 10. And we know it's not a long time. So what you need to do is make your information as clear, as easy, and as accessible as possible so that in those 10 seconds, the recruiter sees something that catches their eye and they maintain looking at your resume. Because if it's too dense, if it's too hard to read, after that 10 seconds, they'll get nothing and think, I'm throwing this out. The other one is the most important remembering is your CV is not your biography. It is not a list of every single achievement, every single work experience, and every single course you have taken. It is just a custom list of the highlights that you have done that directly align to the role you are applying for. So in your life, you will have multiple CVs or resumes because you will have designed them to directly match the job you are applying for. And there you will take your 20 things you did at one job, but only put forth the 4 most relevant and applicable tasks that you did to this role and make them shine and highlight. So when you're thinking about length, I always go for 1 page, but if you'd like to argue for 2, just try to keep these rules in mind. Making sure that you make it really clean and accessible and that these aren't your full biography. It's just the highlights. This is the good stuff, the best stuff that align to the job I'm working for. 2, people don't often think about it, but you do want to do formatting very well. A well-formatted resume or CV makes it easier for any recruiter to readily find the most important details in those 10 seconds. So 1, use clean horizontal lines to divide sections to make it really easy to find. 2, choose an easy to read font, sans serif, which means it doesn't have the little curly cues at the end of your letters. And make sure that you never go smaller than a size 10. Me as a recruiter does not want to squint or put glasses on to read your resume. So make sure that the size of 10 is the smallest font you absolutely go to. Also, choose the order you would like to display your content. While you can see many resume examples, and they usually start with a header and all your details, a summary, education, and work experience, potentially, if you've been out of school for 5 years, work experience is now more important than education. So you'll move that to the top and make sure that that is one of those things that the highlighter can kind of peruse in those 10 crucial seconds. And finally, keep it simple and not overly designed. There are some beautiful resume templates out there, but if you're going for finance, engineering, and more, you're going to be better off having really good, clean bullet points and information than a beautifully designed resume or CV. And finally, beware the ATS. So what is an ATS? ATS is an applicant tracking system. It's a software that provides recruiting and hiring tools for companies. And among other functions, what it does is it collects all the applications and it can usually sort through thousands at a time. So what we need to know about an ATS is 1, it commonly uses keyword searches. So what the ATS system will have is a job description. And they'll look at the job description and then they'll review your resume and they will match all the keywords in it. And if you have enough keywords that match, your resume will then go to the next stage of the ATS review. ATSs also work best with simple formatting in either Word or PDF. So the more complex formatting you have, you may want to reduce what content is viewed. So if you have too many tables that are making your resume beautiful or too many graphics and more, it might not actually go through an ATS. And finally, it's important because 99% of Fortune 500 companies use ATSs. So it's not something that's not common right now. It is something that everyone is using and more large and small medium enterprises are getting on board just because of the sheer number of applicants they get. So the best idea that you have for an ATS is 1, format carefully. Make sure you use common section titles such as work experience, education, and more. Use keywords. So make sure when you're making your resume, if you're applying for a specific job, that you look at that job description and you try to mirror the keywords used there in your resume so that they can actually be picked up by the ATS. Make sure you tailor your resume to the job description, making each resume CV unique to the job that you are applying for. And finally, give it a test. There are many sites that offer free ATS tests. So you can go to ZipJob, Resume Worded, JobScan, and what they'll let you do is upload a job description, upload your resume, and let you see what happens. They'll show you what's not getting picked up, what's getting missed, and how you can actually better format your resume to see the ATS. If you're ever on LinkedIn, LinkedIn uses ATSs all the time. And what you'll see sometimes is you're the top 50% candidates for this role. What they're doing is they're looking at the job description and they're looking at your LinkedIn profile and they're looking at those keyword searches and those experiences. That's an ATS system in and of itself. So if you can look at the length of your resume and make sure it only has the really crucial highlights, if you can format it beautifully, and you can be aware that technology is impacting how your resume is being read, we then have the fundamentals of what make a great resume or CV. The next step you'll have to do is add your current experience, what you just did, to your resume. And this will be under work experience because you did just complete an internship. Whether it was paid or unpaid, it absolutely is not volunteer. It is direct work or internship experience. And the first thing you'll want to do is when you create your job, you will want to create multiple bullet points of explaining what you did, and they will need to start with an action verb. So there are multiple action verbs, and you can actually just Google great action verbs for a CV, and they will give you list upon list, like 1,000 words that you can use for a resume or CV. Here is just a couple examples. We have some great ones of if you were successful in implementing or changing something, you revitalized, standardized, upgraded. If you directed or managed a team, potentially you cultivated, directed, facilitated. You could also work in a support capacity, which many interns do. So you coordinated, executed, programmed, resolved. Or many interns also complete analysis or research. So potentially you mapped, measured, evaluated, examined. You can also support written and verbal communications, such as authored, composed, corresponded, reviewed, promoted, or potentially had great successes in your internship. So you accelerated, earned, surpassed, succeeded, showcased. So what we'll think of is just 3 really common action verbs that you see a lot on resumes, especially with an internship. Coordinated, assisted, supported. So if everyone can think and choose one of these action words, think coordinated, assisted, supported. Once you have an action verb and you've selected one of these 3, the next thing you'll want to do is complete a sentence, right? You want to complete that bullet point. So here's some examples. You can coordinated the monthly social media calendar. You assisted in the delivery of a full market analysis for a potential client. You supported the creation of a full landing page for a new website. So I will give you a second, but if you can think of your internship current experience or past experience and create a bullet point that starts with coordinated, assisted, or supported, please raise your hand or type in the sentence to the chat so we can hear it or see it. So if you can create a sentence that has a good example using the action verbs coordinated, assisted, or supported, type it in to the chat function and we'll see if I can read a couple out loud for examples of what you all did during your internship. Ooh, coordinated and organized a community service. Great example. Coordinated potential partnerships with South Asian fintechs. Supported the creation and publishing of the new coffee shop website. Assisted in writing weekly articles for the company to be posted in the social media. These are all perfect examples. And they're perfect examples actually for what we're going to discuss next. So what you need to do is once you have a good bullet point, and a good bullet point always starts with an action verb and then tells what they did, you need to quantify the bullet. And I cannot stress this enough. If you remember only one thing about this session that I'm delivering right now, or in general about creating a dynamic resume, then remember this. All content on your resume should include numbers and examples. Remember, all content on your resume should include numbers and examples. Quantifying your content shows impact, it builds understanding, and it creates tangible ties to the future of work. So you are able to quantify your work regardless of the role, regardless if the role required working with numbers. And numbers can be added based on frequency, range, and scale. And so first we can look at frequency. So this is the most straightforward and easiest way to add numbers to your bullet point. It's really based on how frequently you completed a task, but it helps the recruiter build understanding about how much capacity you had, how much work you were supporting, and more. So for example, you could say planned community workshops supporting logistics, venue setup, and event delivery. Or you could say planned 2 to 3 community workshops monthly supporting logistics, venue setup, and event delivery to 25 to 50 attendees on average. Now I know that 2 to 3 times a month, you really had to go through this process. You created the event, you delivered the logistics and more. And I also know the size, right? So it wasn't a 2,000 person event, which would take a lot of different manpower and support and logistics. It was 25 to 50, which is still a really good number, but it lets me know the size and scale and frequency of what you were doing. You could write edited articles for weekly newsletter, or you could write reviewed and evaluated 10 to 20 articles per week, providing feedback and editing. You could note manage social media content for a company, or you could say manage social media accounts responsible for 5 posts a week, resulting in 325 new followers monthly. Another way to add numbers is range. So this is an easy way because what you're doing is you're quantifying how often you did something, potentially calls you made, people you supervised, case studies you wrote, and more. So they don't always have to be the precise numbers, and they can be your best estimate, but you don't want to overestimate or hyperbolize. So for example, you could say filed folders and paperworks. Assisted department by completing filing and data entry projects to maintain organization and efficiency, supporting the organization of over 250 customer files weekly. Supervised summer interns. Supervised 7 to 10 summer interns, ensuring clear scheduling, managing expectations, and creating individualized professional development plans. So with every time I'm adding a number, I'm also elongating the bullet point to give examples, tangible things that then could be tied into what the recruiter is looking for, and then they'll want to call your resume and your application back sooner. The final way you can do it is scale. So this at times is the most difficult, and potentially if a 3-month internship, you won't have made the scale to really apply this. But in future longer term positions, it's a really dynamic way to, one, utilize in any feedback you have with your supervisor. If you're ever doing salary negotiations, if you can say really specifically what scale of impact you had, it will really help. And you can apply it to your resume for that future job application. So for example, you could say manage communications with pending partners to support customer service and sales. Or you can say managed external communications with pending partners, providing additional information, customer service, and custom materials, successfully converting 15% of pending partners to signed customers, resulting in 6,000 monthly revenue increase. Companies are hiring you because they want to see tangible outcomes and successes. If I am looking at someone who needs to do a business development role and they can show that they increased my revenue by 6,000, well, then I really want to support and hire them. They're going to be really useful to me. You could also assist in the completing the inventory of an entire store monthly. So introduced new inventory system for local boutique, increasing efficiency and successfully decreasing time spent on taking inventory by 25% and loss of inventory by 15%. Remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's not a lie and you're not embellishing. It can only be done if you're truthful and honest about your work experience, but it allows you to take your work experience and really showcase and highlight it in the best way. So if we go back to those 3 example bullet points I gave, a way to really make them better would not be just coordinated the monthly social media calendar, but coordinated the monthly social media calendar with an average 2 posts per day, gaining 135 new Instagram followers. Assisted in the delivery of a full market analysis for potential client, including feasibility study, SWOT analysis, and financial projections. Here, I didn't add numbers, you can see, but I did add examples. And by unpacking those 3 things, it now let the recruiter know, oh, this person knows what a SWOT analysis is. This person worked with financial projections. I actually need someone who can really support market analysis specifically in financial projections, and they might be the candidate for me. And finally, supported the creation of a full landing page for a new website utilizing WordPress and Drupal with average stay on page increasing 204%. By noting WordPress and Drupal, it will help keyword searches if you're using an ATS system, and it showcases to the recruiter, these are the systems I know. I was just very successful using Drupal. How about you hiring me if you need additional support with a Drupal-based website? Does anyone want to take a stab at taking their sentence that they created and adding either examples or a number to it? You can just write it in the chat function again. We had some really good example bullets, right? So coordinated potential partnerships with Asian, within South Asia to fintechs. Potentially you could add coordinated potential partners with South Asian fintechs, resulting in 5 meetings a month and 1 new partnership a quarter, right? Now you're giving numbers. Coordinated and organized a community service event for 300 people, right? There we go. Developed both the internal and external structural design of 3 different models of a hydrogen-powered generators using CAD software. There we go. We have, what did they do? It was hydrogen-powered generators. So if I'm a recruiter and I'm really looking at this specific skills or experience with hydrogen, that would be good. And you noting CAD software is another ding, ding, ding. This person understands CAD. And the good question would be here is, what if I can't measure the tasks? Well, you can always measure tasks. How often did you do the task? How big was the office that you were supporting, right? So if you go back to the first, there we go, acted as receptionist cover. Well, I can't really measure that, right? Each and every day I was answering phones, I was cleaning up data, I was doing this. But if I know that it was 5 lines and that it was around a 50-person office each and every day, I now know that the office was quite busy and that I was answering phones all the time. And it was different than I managed a small reception office getting incoming calls about 10 times a day, right? It shows the difference of scale, the difference of dynamics you're going to have. So in making bullet points to really unpack your job description and what you just did as an intern, do remember, don't go beyond full 4 bullets per job. You really want to create clean 4 bullets. Now, when I create a resume, what I'll usually do is I'll say, this is my current job, and these are the 10 to 20 bullets I do at my job, because we know that your job description could fill up 3 pages just for your 1 internship, right? So you have multiple bullets that you really supported and multiple tasks. So I write those 10 to 20 bullet points and I make them really good as best as possible, either including examples of what I did or adding in numbers. And then I look at the job description I'm applying for, and I choose the 4 bullet points that best meet the needs of this job description, deleting all the other bullet points. And I do this for each of my work experiences. So I have multiple bullet points on an unformatted resume, and then I always clean it up and just pick the best 4 highlights, remember, to add to that final resume I'm going to submit. So that goes to bullet point 2, which is choose only the most relevant. I don't need all the bullet points. I don't need to know everything you did. I need to know what you did that's relevant to the job I am hiring for. 3, always start with an action verb. You want to always start with an action verb, and for your current job, you can use present tense, and for your past jobs, use past tense, and make sure it's really consistent and clean. And 4, proofread for errors and clarity. There's nothing worse than a typo or an error in your resume, because often it can get you very readily and quickly thrown out. So common errors to improve your resume. And what I did is I actually took this from a couple resumes that have been sent to me for a very high level director role. And what I did is I did remove a lot. I changed all the companies and I removed some of the words. So you'll see that they don't always make sense because this was private information. But the first the first error you can have is you don't list bullets. This person, you can see, had clear action points, action verbs: coordinated, conducted, effectively, ensured. But it's all jumbled in one paragraph. So me as a recruiter, when I read it, it's hard to get into the body of the paragraph. If I had bullets, I would be more readily able to really see what was happening. There's also not one number listed in here. So now I have no examples or no tangible outcomes that I can read. Another one I got was they listed all the bullet points. Every last thing they had ever done at this job, they listed. Well, that's not relevant to my work. I only want to know the highlights that really apply to the direct job description I had. So when I got this, it was tiny text. It was a serif text font, so you can see the little squiggles at the end of each letter. It was hard to read. It was tiny font. It was like 8. And it just listed everything. So I was overwhelmed. And in my 10 seconds, I thought, oh, move into the next one. I can't get to the heart of the content, so I don't have the time to get there. So ensuring when you add your job description, your internship experience, what you want to do is make sure you make some really good bullet points, you use those action verbs, and then you edit down to the 4 clean bullet points you'd like to add to your job description. So this leads to just the whole of your resume or CV. So just really quickly, what we'll do is we'll start at the top and we'll work all the way down through a CV. So first, you have formatting. Like I said, you should always choose an easy to read font and don't go below size 11 or 10. I say limit yourself to 1 page, especially if you are a recent graduate. Most likely, unless you've had 3+ full-time jobs, you don't have enough experience or skills to fill in multiple pages. So just keep it on 1 really clean, best highlights of your work experience. Take time to choose the order you would like to display your content in, based upon the most relevant and important data. As noted, create those horizontal borders to structure different elements and areas of your resume, and adhere to the rule of consistency. So always format job titles, companies, and dates the same throughout your resume. Don't format one job one way and another job another way. It's going to make it really difficult for me to see that these are 2 job listings or 2 education listings or more. And always make sure that the dates align to the right of the page. So some quick edits. If you look at your resume, do you use horizontal lines? If you don't, you might want to think about how your sections are broken up and how clear it is to make sure that the eye is really drawn across the page and then down. If you hold your resume up and away from your face, is it easy to read? If it's not, review your font choice, maybe potentially adjust the margins to create more space. Ensure that your header, which includes your name and information, is easy and prominent to find. And think, if I spent 6 to 10 seconds reading it, would I find the right keywords? The first section on your resume, of course, is the header. So the clearest thing, the most important thing you can do is make sure that this is clear and easy to read. If I read your resume and I like you, I want to make sure that I can find your contact details like that. as easy as possible. So it includes your first and last name, your phone number, your email, and it can include your location. It doesn't need to be your full address. I don't need to stalk you at home, but it should have your city and state. And optionally, you can include your LinkedIn profile, only if you've cleaned that URL so that it says at linkedin.com/James Jones, not backslash at 1957665, right? You can include a link to your online portfolio or to your Skype ID. An example is at the bottom of just a really clean James Jones. The section 2, which is optional, is your personal and professional summary. A professional summary is 3 to 4 sentence paragraph at the top of your resume, which allows recruiters to quickly read and understand your strategic value to the role. It's like a tiny, tiny cover letter. It is a brief statement to sell yourself to employers, and it should be written in first person. A summary is optional, but it's really useful in a couple cases. One, if you're switching industries and need to explain why and highlight transferable skills. If you potentially lack extensive work experience and therefore need to take the opportunity to explain professional background, or you are applying to a role that does not require a cover letter. So here's an example of a professional statement. As a junior at American University, studying international business and marketing, I have undertaken several internships supporting marketing and business development departments. These placements have enabled me to develop external communication and project management skills while giving insight into this fast-paced sector. Looking to secure an international internship in China where I can bring strategic and cross-cultural value while developing current skill set further. So if you have a personal summary, amazing, excellent. And if you want to make sure of a quick edit, first, is it more than 4 lines? The example I just gave you was 5. And really what you want to do is try to edit the content to make it really brief, really direct, and to the point. 2, does it use keywords? Ensure that when you're applying to a specific job that you use the job description to decide what keywords that you include. And 3, if you don't have a summary, consider why and if a summary would be really useful to you. The third section is usually education, and as recent graduates, it most likely should be up top and front and center on your resumes. What you should include is your university, university location, degree and concentration, and pending or recent graduation date. Additional components you can include are your GPA, only if it's good. If it's bad, get that off of there. Key courses, dissertation topic or thesis, and leadership roles. Tips, you don't need to list your high school or secondary education experience if you have more than 1 year university experience. It's now redundant and it's not really important. And relevant coursework is optional, but it is a good way to showcase experience in an industry. Now, here's an example of educational experience where it has the horizontal line, that gray bar, helping to break up the sections. The person worked at American University and they had relevant coursework. I looked at a lot of your resumes and some of people's relevant courseworks listed 7, 10, 20 courses. Do not do this. Do not list more than 5 relevant courses. There are probably only 5 truly relevant courses that are directly linked to that job description. And make sure that anything you have is really explainable. So don't use acronyms if you don't have to. And also, for example, GPAs are not a requirement, but if they're strong, use them, but also explain the scale. If your GPA is out of 5 point, do that out of a 5 point. You can see here, it's a 3.4 out of a 4-point scale. So it made it really clear and clean. For quick edits of education, you should look at it and ask, did you use acronyms? While most will understand BBA or MS or MA, it is better to assume that the recruiter will not know what the acronym is rather than make them feel silly for not knowing. So you should always write the entire title out. Did you recently graduate? If so, you can include your GPA and your graduation year. Did you graduate 4+ years ago? Then you probably need to remove your GPA, remove those relevant courses, and move your education below work experience, because now your work experience is your most important thing on your resume that will really align to that job description. The final thing, the fourth section is the work experience. So this is what you guys just redid, right? You thought of those sentences, you thought of action verbs, you thought how to quantify and more. And so what you do want to do is keep the formatting consistent, use action verbs, quantify your experiences, be specific, and give examples. All work experiences should have 2 to 4 bullets. It shouldn't be paragraphs, and it shouldn't be more than four bullets. And tips is you really want to list your most recent work first and then work backwards. That's reverse chronological order. More than 5 bullets is really unnecessary, and it's basically listing basic, ad hoc, or irrelevant experience. And if you're applying to international roles, do feel free to list 1 to 2 sentences explaining the company that you worked for, just to give context. So here's an example of 3 different jobs that are listed on someone's resume. They each have 3 bullet points, and you can see all the formatting is really consistent. Dates are aligned on the right. They've used horizontal formatting. They've made sure each company is bold. They've also done 1 sentence explaining the company for each, because presumably they're applying to an international role, and the international recruiter might not know who CRI Technologies is. If you look, each bullet point starts with an action verb, which is wonderful. Each job only has those 3 to 4 clear bullet points. The bullet points have numbers included, right? So supported the development of 3 grant applications, including drafting, researching, and final editing, resulting in additional 25,000 funds given. And all jobs are formatted the same. If you'd like to do a quick edit of your current work experience, think, do you have more than 4 bullets? Well, you probably need to edit down. Did you use action verbs? Well, you need to go back and reformat your bullet points. And did you use numbers? They are one of the most powerful things on your resume. So if you don't use numbers, at least use examples and try to unpack what work you did. Finally, you can always include additional activities. So this can include accomplishments or awards, volunteer experience, project-based experience, participation in clubs or sports teams. This should be not longer than your work experience. So if you're going to 2 pages because you've decided to list every last volunteering activity you did in the past 4 years, you probably need to edit down to the most recent or relevant. The other thing you can add is skills. So it's really important when writing your resume that potentially you have a skills section, because it goes back to that ATS and that keyword matching. And skills section is a really easy way to just add in some of those keywords to help match. You do have 2 different types of skills. You have hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills are teachable abilities or skills that are easy to quantify. So proficiency in a foreign language, a certification, typing speed, machine operation, computer programming, more. Soft skills are also known as people skills or interpersonal skills. And they're how you relate to or interact with other people. And they're what a lot of companies say that they have a hard time finding graduates with ample soft skills in. So this is communication, flexibility, leadership, motivation, patience, persuasion, problem solving, teamwork, time management, and ethic. So you might not want to list 20 different skills, but keep it a set 8 or less, but it can allow this section to kind of pad your resume with keywords and allow some keywords to stand out when the recruiter's looking at your resume. Here's an example of key skills on the resume: Spanish fluent, Microsoft Excel certified, adaptable and flexible, social media management, project management, and team oriented. So quick edit of skills is if you don't have a skills section, it is optional, but consider why you don't have it and if it would impact or enhance your resume. And did you review the job description? Make sure that if you're applying to a specific job, if you've reviewed the job description and those keywords aren't already in your resume, you might want to add a skills section just to make sure that there's alignment. So overall, these are your best practices. Remember, when you're making a resume or a CV, keep it consistent. 2, use action verbs. And I can promise you, like I said, if you Google action verbs to use in a CV or resume, you'll get list upon list upon list. Always quantify your experience with numbers and examples so that it's really easy and apparent for the recruiter to read. And 2, manage content order. Although there's different templates for your resume, you are the one who gets to decide which is at top and which the recruiter is going to read first, and make sure it's the most relevant and important information to get you the job or the interview. So that leaves us to questions. I did see a bunch in the question and answer, so I'm very excited to get through them. So the first question we're going to do is, what is better, your CV in PDF or in Word document? Now, I always put my resume in a PDF format. That is because when a recruiter opens it, they will always see it in the format that you intended, right? In the exact margins, the exact way that you wanted it. If you do a Word doc and I open it in Google Sheets, or if I open it in Word 1997 and you open it in Word 2003, that's going to off-kilter the formatting, and now I'm not seeing it how you intended it. But the most important thing you can remember is always submit your resume the way that the job application has requested. So if they request it in Word, you best make sure it's in Word. If they request it in PDF, you best make sure it's in PDF. Never submit your resume in PNG or JPEG, because that removes the searchability of keywords and it will throw off the applicant tracking system and you will get pinged from it. Another question, which is a great question, is should I write in just black or white, or should I highlight the important details with brighter colors? This is a good question because there's no right or wrong answer. I think by making sure that your resume isn't too bright or flashy, you can always add a little bit of personality or a little bit of flair to your resume. So if potentially you wanted to create horizontal lines with your favorite color green to add a little pop to your resume, that's not a problem. Now, are you adding all sorts of different colors, different fonts and everything, and making it really hard to read, or just so colorful that that's the most important thing I read about your resume? Then you need to take a step back and edit, right? The most important thing you can do is enhance your resume and then edit down to only have that relevant, really easy to read details. So absolutely, if you'd like to use one additional bright color potentially, go for it if that really adds your personality and makes you feel good about your resume. But do make sure that one, adding the color doesn't throw off the ATS system, so do an ATS free test. Two, that when you print out that resume and you hold it up and you're looking at it, you can still focus on the words and the descriptions that you put there to make it really shine. And three, that the job application hasn't said the resume has to be in black and white, because remember, the job application is the most important thing to follow, because they are looking for excuses to throw out your resume. Another question is, I see that this is getting recorded, and to confirm, this is recorded and I will upload it to YouTube and send you the link when you can watch it at any time. I'll also send you a PDF of the slides so you can just slowly review any bullet points or examples that I've given. Another question is, regarding the bullet points, what if this is my first time ever applying for a job? That's a great question. And if I was giving this resume to first year students, or if I was giving this lecture to first year students, I would start a whole different lecture. I would start, what is a resume and what are the key components that make a resume, and teach you how to build a resume from scratch. Doing this session for MISC students, there are two assumptions I have to make. One, you all applied with a decent and clear resume to get into this program. And two, you all have work experience now because you have just completed or will be completing your internship. Whether this is your first or third internship or your 20th internship, it is more additional work experience. You absolutely have clear work experience you can apply to that work experience section, which is really, really important. Job seekers, recruiters have noted that an internship is by far the most important thing you have on your resume when seeking work. Not your GPA, not your major, not your education, an internship. And that people with more than one internship have increased likelihood of getting called back for an interview. So your ability to take this MISC remote internship experience and make sure that you can create 4 really good bullet points and apply it to your resume is really crucial. We just went through a couple examples where you start with your action verb, you create the sentence, and then you review it to see how can you make that sentence better, either by adding examples or numbers. Once you go through that system, you'll be able to add that to your work experience and be able just to have that one work experience, some other skills and experiences, and more to make that one-page beautiful resume. Great question. So you're saying I should underline and use bold fonts to my keywords. No, you shouldn't do that because an ATS system will automatically find that for you. But if you're looking at this example right here of these jobs, what you'll see is all these people bolded the same exact thing, the company title. They then italicized all the company locations to make it really clear what they were saying. And then everything else is in just standard font. That is a way to really make sure keywords or key things are standing out and you're formatting using bold, italics, and more. You shouldn't go through and underline and bold all your keywords, but you should make sure that you use your formatting well. Another question is, as a recent graduate, is it okay to add college activities? Yes, but as I just noted, your most important thing that you have is your education plus work experience. So those should be your top 2 things on your resume, and your skills or additional activities should be at the bottom, right? It should be a much smaller section. You should limit how many college activities you write to your top 3 or 4, and only the relevant ones that could apply to that job description. But your most important section is going to be that education history and those 4 beautiful bullet points you create for your internship experience. Another great question is, what is the minimum GPA that is acceptable to be written on a CV? It depends. The company might sometimes in the job description write, we're looking for like 2.5 or higher. Out of a 4-point scale, anything higher than a 3 is acceptable. Out of a 5-point scale, I'm not sure what is actually the requirement. You don't have to write it on your resume. You can always disclose it someplace else. But it's good to look at it and to kind of see and to always explain what the scale is. If you write your GPA is a 3.0, you'll need to say what the scale is. Is it out of a 4 or a 5? I'm not asked a great question. Is the PDF, should it be an A4 size? Well, you're lucky now because most recruiters aren't actually printing out resumes anymore. They're looking at it digitally. But this is a problem I had. So professionally, I have worked in the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and Vietnam. And if you can imagine, those resumes required a little bit of tweaking to each job market. But the big thing was I was coming from an American sizing, which is a letter size, to then the UK, which is an A4 size. So I did have to reformat and change everything to fit the size of the country I was applying to. So if in Saudi Arabia, you always use A4 size, you should continue having your resume in A4 size. If you're applying to only jobs in the US, potentially think about creating a US-centric resume that is definitely only 1 page. The US prefers only 1 page and is in letterhead size. A great question is, what if I'm having a lot of technical skills that are really relevant to the job? Should I skip mentioning the soft skills? So if you look at it, most employers say, I'm having a huge problem. I'm having a problem with college graduates who have the right degree, the right major, the right technical skills, and absolutely no soft skills. So what you'll want to do is, 1, demonstrate that in your application, your interview, and more, and make sure that you don't skip it thinking that technical skills are more important than soft skills. Because in today's changing world, as technology takes away some technical skills, some of the most important skills you can have are those soft transferable skills. Just because the word soft seems less, it's not. It's very, very important to have both hard and soft skills. Another question is it okay to add languages to your resume? Absolutely, but don't ever embellish or lie. There's constant times where I get a student saying, I'm fluent in Spanish, and then you start speaking Spanish to them and they know nothing. Make sure that you have a set way to say, I am a native speaker in Arabic, I am a fluent speaker in English, and I am a beginner speaker in French. If you have that, be clear about it and articulate. Another question is, should I add courses and conferences I attended? No. You should add 5 relevant courses, but conferences, if you just attend them, they're not really that important to an employer. Did you present at the conference? Then yes, let's add that. But just going to a core class and going to a conference or getting a certificate isn't that end all be all. I need tangible work experience that I can tie into both. A final question is, how long can a cover letter be? Most companies will kind of give you a guidance, but really you should aim for that 1 page as well. Once again, recruiters don't have time. They have a lot of applicants and they really want to get through things quickly, and they want to make you, as the applicant, to make their life as easy as possible. And in doing that, you need to make everything as direct, accessible, and simple as possible. So remember, in everything that you do, when you apply to a job, it is not your life story. It is not your biography. It is not every last single conference you attended, course you did, job you did. It is the highlight of the most relevant, applicable, great things you did to that directly tie to the job you are applying to. Unfortunately, everyone, I am out of time, so I promise I will send you all a follow-up email of this recording and the PDF, and to that follow-up email, please respond with any direct questions and we'd be happy to discuss. You can also ask these questions to your coach in your final coaching call and more, and we'd be happy to get through them. I thank you all because you were really dynamic, you were really engaged, you asked some great questions and had some great example bullet points. And I look forward to seeing you all next Tuesday as we meet with some peer mentors to discuss how to end your internship on a high note. So thank you all again. I promise I will send the recording out, and please respond to that recording with any questions.